Welcome back to series where we build message crawler and adding more and more features to it. Let me take you to the screen and show you what I built next. Okay, so what happened is I got asked if we can load data from Slack into this. And I started looking at it and I realized, yes, I can do it. It's not terribly difficult format. So I did. So here's how I got it implemented. I have an import that button, which replaces that top section that we had where you browse to a file. And I added import Slack button. So let's click on that. And it's going to come up with a screen where we can browse to Slack data. So let me show you what Slack data looks like. I have a folder here where we have a channels JSON. So this matches to these folders here. We have our users, which contains list of Slack users, and inside these folders there are actual JSON files that represent conversation that is happening in these channels. So let's see what we can do with this data. I'm going to minimize that and I'm going to say import Slack to memory. So this window is like a transition window. This is what helps you get data into the grid view. So I'm going to say import Slack to memory, and I'm going to browse to it, and I'm going to select my channels JSON. Now sometimes there are other files, like for private communications, you can select those too because they have a similar format, so they will work fine. In our case, we just have channels. I'm going to click on that, and now it's going to load the data and tell us the stats. First thing it says, we're loading from this folder. It found 3 users. It found 4 channels or groups or whatever they're called, and it tells us which channel ID and a name and how many messages it found. So this is one way you could look at it and see, okay, did I get everything? Did I not get everything? And then the same way, like if you don't want something to be loaded, you could either go to the channels JSON file and only cut and keep certain channels you want, or you can just go to these folders and take those folders and move them somewhere else, perform loading operation and put them back. What it does is it just checks for folders. If folders with those names exist, it'll look for files there. If they don't exist, it just, okay, moves on. Next thing we gotta do is we gotta download attachments. Our export does not actually have any attachments. So what we're gonna do is click on this button that says download attachments. And the progress on the bottom we went through real quick. It created a folder attachments, and it saved all the attachments with their corresponding IDs into this folder. One thing to note is if you were to go and reload the Slack from memory again, you have to click on download attachments button again, because that's what creates a native link. If you already have downloaded it before, you still have to click on this button, and what it's going to do is it'll find it and it'll create a link. And it's not going to download it again. Okay, now that we have our data loaded into memory and attachments downloaded, we can move on to the next step. Now, for our control number, so we want to generate some kind of control number, right? Because we're going to be creating either that file or grid. So we're going to give it a prefix. We can say ABC and starting number, whatever. And how many digits do you want to zero fill it to? And from here, what we can do is either take the Slack data and export it to a DAT file. Actually, it doesn't work because I have my application is not registered. So don't worry about it. It can export the data either to a DAT file or to a grid. So I'm going to click on grid, and it's going to load it into this view here. And then you can see here that the control numbers, group identifiers were generated. And now we have all our components and fields needed to generate RSMF files. So now we can click generate RSMF and it'll build those files for us. Now, this data is not my data. I don't know if I'm okay with using it in the video, so I'm gonna have to blur it out so you guys can tell what this is. Now, the one other thing to note is if you're going to be exporting it to a DAT file, instead of a grid view, you will get more metadata fields. Right? Slack has tons and tons of metadata fields, so for a DAT file, I just put a bunch more in there just in case you want them. but currently there is no way to pick which field to export and such. That's not really primary use of this application. Anyway, the point of message crawler is to generate RSMF files. So as long as we can import into memory, bring it to this grid view and generate the files, we should be good. So yeah, if you have Slack data and you're a message crawler user, you can convert that to either a DAT file or RSMF file. Let me know what you think. Talk to you guys later.